Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text number 3. Nigamakalpa Taror Galitam Phalam Sukhamukat Amrita Drava Samyitam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasa Alayam Muhur Aho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha Nigamakalpataro Ghalitam Phalam Sukha Mukat Amrita Drava Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhaho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha Nigamakalpataro Ghalitam Phalam Sukha Mukat Amrita Drava Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha Nigamakalpataro Galitam Phalam Sukhat Mukhat Amrita Drava Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha Vaishnavis. Nigama, the Vedic literatures. Kalpatarar, the desire tree. Galitam, fully matured. Phalam, fruit. Sukha, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, the original speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. Mukhat, from the lips of. Amrita, nectar. Dravaha, semi-solid and soft, and therefore easily swallowable. Samyutam, perfect in all respects. Pibata, Do relish it. Bhagavatam, the book dealing in the science of the eternal relation with the Lord. Rasam, juice, that which is relishable. Alayam, until liberation, or even in the liberated condition. Muhur, always. Aho, oh. Rasikaha, those who are full in knowledge of mellows. Bhuvi, on the earth. Bhavukaha, expert and thoughtful. Translation: O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanates from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relished for all, including the liberated souls. So, purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It's a very long purport, so we would read as far as we can go and then say something. In the two previous slokas, it has been definitely proved that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the sublime literature which surpasses all other Vedic literatures due to its transcendental qualities. It is transcendental to all mundane activities and mundane knowledge. In the sloka, it is stated that Srimad Bhagavatam is not only a superior literature, but it is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures. In other words, it is the cream of all Vedic knowledge. Considering all this, patient and submissive hearing is definitely essential. With great respect and attention, one should receive the message and lessons imparted by the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Vedas are compared to the desire tree because they contain all things knowable by man. They deal with mundane necessities as well as spiritual realization. The Vedas contain regulated principles of knowledge, covering social, political, religious, economic, military, medicinal, chemical, physical, metaphysical subject matter, and may be necessary to keep the body and soul together. Above and beyond all of this are specific directions for spiritual realization. Regulated knowledge involves a gradual raising of the living entity to the spiritual platform. And the highest spiritual realization is knowledge that the personality of Godhead is a reservoir of all spiritual tastes or rasas. Every living entity beginning from Brahma, the first born living being within this material world, down to the insignificant ant, desires to relish some sort of taste derived from sense perceptions. These sensual pleasures are technically called rasas. Such rasas are of different varieties. In the revealed scripture, the following 12 varieties of rasas are enumerated: anger, wonder, conjugal love, comedy, chivalry, mercy, servitorship, fraternity, horror, shock, neutrality, and parenthood. The sum total of these rasas is called the affection or love. Primarily, such signs of love are manifest in adoration, service, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. And when these five are absent, love is present indirectly in anger, wonder, comedy, chivalry, fear, shock, and so on. For example, when a man is in love with a woman, the rasa is called conjugal love. But when such love affairs are disturbed, there may be wonder, anger, shock, and even horror. Sometimes love affairs between two persons culminate in ghastly murder scenes. Such rasas are displayed between man and man, between animal and between animal and animal. There is no possibility of an exchange or ras between a man and an animal, or between a man and any other species of living beings within the material world. The rasas are exchanged between members of the same species. But as far as the spirit souls are concerned, they are one qualitatively with the Supreme Lord. Therefore, The rasas were originally exchanged between the spiritual living being and the spiritual whole, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The spiritual exchange, or rasa, is fully exhibited in spiritual existence between living beings and the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is therefore described in the Shruti mantras, Vedic hymns, as the fountainhead of all rasas. When one associates with the Supreme Lord and exchanges one's constitutional ras with the Lord, then the living being is actually happy. These Shruti mantras indicate that every living being has its constitutional position, which is endowed with a great type of ras to be exchanged with the personality of Godhead. In the liberated condition only, the primary rasa is experienced in full. In the material existence, the rasa is experienced in a perverted form, which is temporary, and thus the rasas of the material world are exhibited in the material form of anger and so on. Therefore, one who attains full knowledge of these different rasas, which are the basic principle of activities, can understand the false representation of the original ras, which are reflections of the material world. The learned scholar seeks to relish the real ras in the spiritual form. In the beginning, he desires to become one with the Supreme. Thus, less intelligent transcendentalists cannot go beyond this conception of becoming one with the spirit whole, without knowing of the different rasas. In this sloka, it is definitely stated that this spiritual ras, which is relished even in the liberated stage, can be experienced in the literature of the Srimad Bhagavatam, due to its being the ripened fruit of all Vedic knowledge. By submissive hearing this transcendental literature, one can attain the full pleasure of his heart's desire. But one must be very careful to hear the message from the right source. Srimad Bhagavatam is exactly received from the right source. It was brought by Narada Muni from the spiritual world, given to his disciple Shri Vyasadeva. The latter in turn delivered the message to his son, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, and Sukadeva Goswami delivered the message to Maharaj Parikshit just 7 days before the king's death. Srila Sukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul from his very birth. He was liberated even in the womb of his mother, and he did not undergo any sort of spiritual training after his birth. At birth, no one is qualified, neither in the mundane nor in the spiritual sense. But Srila Sukadeva Goswami, due to his being a perfectly liberated soul, did not have to undergo an evolutionary process for spiritual realization. Yet, despite his being a complete liberated person, situated in transcendental position, above the three modes, he was attracted to this transcendental ras of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by liberated souls who sing Vedic hymns. The Supreme Lord's pastimes are more attracted to liberated souls than to mundane people. He is of necessity, not impersonal, because it is only possible to carry on transcendental ras with a person. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are narrated, and the narration is systematically depicted by Srila Sukadeva Goswami. Thus, the subject matter is appealing to all classes of persons, including those who seek liberation and those who seek to become one with the Supreme Whole. In Sanskrit, the parrot is known as suka. When a ripened fruit is cut by the red beaks of such birds, its sweet flavor is enhanced. The Vedic fruit, which is mature and ripe in knowledge, and is spoken through the lips of Sukadeva Goswami, which is compared to the parrot, not for his ability to recite the Bhagavatam exactly as he heard it from his learned father, but for his ability to present the work in a manner that would appeal to all classes of men. The subject matter is to present to the lips of Srila Sukadeva Goswami that any sincere listener that hears submissively can at once relish transcendental tastes, which are distinct from the perverted tastes of this material world. The ripened fruit is not dropped all of a sudden from the highest planet of Krishna Loka. Rather, it comes down carefully through the chain of disciplic succession, without change or disturbance. Foolish people who are not in the transcendental disciplic succession commit a great blunder but trying to understand the highest transcendental ras, known as the rasa dance, without following in the footsteps of Sukadeva Goswami, who presents this fruit very carefully by stages of transcendental realization. One should be intelligent enough to know the position of Srimad Bhagavatam by considering personalities like Sukadeva Goswami, who deals with the subject so carefully. This process of disciplic succession of the Bhagavat school suggests that in the future also Srimad Bhagavatam has to be understood from a person who is factually a representative of Srila Sukadeva Goswami. A professional man can make a business out of reciting the Bhagavatam illegally. He is certainly not a representative of Sukadeva Goswami. Such a man's business is only to earn his livelihood. Therefore, one should refrain from hearing lectures from such professional men. Such men usually go to the most confidential part of the literature without undergoing the gradual process of understanding this grave subject. They usually plunge into the subject matter of the rasa dance, which is misunderstood by the foolish class of men. Some of them take this to be immoral, while others try to cover it up by their stupid interpretations. Hare Krishna. They have no desire to follow in the footsteps of Srila Sukadeva Goswami. It's the last paragraph. One should conclude, therefore, that the serious student of the rasa should receive the message of Bhagavatam in the chain of disciplic succession from Sukadeva Goswami, who describes the Bhagavatam from its very beginning, and not whimsically to satisfy the mundaner who has very little knowledge in transcendental science. Srimad Bhagavatam is so carefully presented that a sincere and serious person can at once enjoy the ripened fruit of the Vedic knowledge simply by drinking the nectarian juice to the mouth of Sukadeva Goswami or his bona fide representative. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjanan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Shahagana Raghunatam Vitam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nigamakalpataro Galitam Phalam Shukamukadamrita Dravasamyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was always relishable for all, including liberated souls. So it's indeed very awkward to speak in the presence of such senior Vaishnavas and devotees. So I beg your permission and blessings that I might be able to serve you. This particular chapter is entitled The Questions by the Sages. Had a very long, very powerful purport. The first verse of this chapter, it establishes Krishna as the Supreme Lord. The second verse establishes Srimad Bhagavatam as a topmost scripture. And this verse is extolling the glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam in a very powerful way. In the front section of the book, Srila Prabhupada dedicates this particular canto of Bhagavatam to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj. He says on the 27th annual celebration ceremony of the disappearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, which was in 1937. That means that this Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada had completed this purport probably around 1964, before he came to the West. He did the translation and purport at the Radha Damodar rooms. You would know that Srila Prabhupada, when he went there, paid 2,000 rupees to refurbish where he was going to stay. And he was paying 2 rupees a month to stay there. The Krishna conscious movement was born at these Radha Damodar rooms. So although Prabhupada had a sitting room, he would translate in the kitchen because he'd look over to Rupa Goswami's Samadhi, and he was able to reflect in that way. So anxious to get Srimad Bhagavatam completed, Srila Prabhupada, he put everything into the first canto. Actually, he instructed, when devotees showed him the mock-up of all the covers of Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada was happy with all the cantos from 2 to 9. But the first canto, he insisted, should have a wraparound. First canto should have a wraparound. So he was preparing himself to launch the Krishna conscious movement. It was the key part of his strategy. The Bhagavatam was front and center in Srila Prabhupada's efforts to fulfill the order of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In this text we are reading how Sukadeva Goswami, that he is uniquely qualified to speak Srimad Bhagavatam, having got it from Vyasadeva. But in a similar way, the Bhaktivedanta purport, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, is very, very unique. Most unique. You would recall, or we all know, that Srila Vyasadeva compiled compendiums of Vedic literature, very exhaustive Vedic literature, to such an extent that nobody has ever prepared such an exhaustive compilation of scripture ever before. He compiled and divided all the knowledge he acquired, and he accumulated. He had the 4 Vedas, 108 Upanishads, the Mahabharata, 100,000 verses. Center of the Mahabharata was Bhagavad Gita, the 18 Puranas, all the Itihasas, Samhitas. But somehow or the other, paradoxically, Srila Vyasadeva was dissatisfied. He wasn't feeling complete. His spiritual master Narada Muni was diagnosed the cause of Vyasadeva's discontent. Said, "You have explained the science of Dharma. You have addressed the different types of people, but you have not written anything about the glorification of Krishna. That ete chamsa kala pumsha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. You have not said anything substantial about Krishna. People in Kali Yuga are generally lazy, unclean. They require diligence. Sometimes they cannot function without the enforcement of a king. Kali Yuga has this impairing ability, a quality. Incrementally it retards every single day. If you travel out on Sankirtan and you meet different people, they are samples of that Kali Yuga taking its entrenched position. It's diminishing. So he says, Vyasadeva, you must state things simply and clearly. So Srila Vyasadeva went and he revised one Purana. That Purana became the Srimad Bhagavatam. And although Vyasadeva had very eminent sages as his disciples, when he split the 4 Vedas, he gave each of the Vedas to each of his disciples, entrusted them to safeguard the Vedas, the 4 divisions, like he gave the Rig Veda to Payali Rishi, Sama Veda to Jaimi. The Srimad Bhagavatam, he reserved it exclusively for Sukadeva Goswami. Shishi Radha Madhava Ki Jai. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the best glorification of Krishna. Kalpa Taror, it's the desire tree. It describes more than 3,000 humans and celestials. 30 avatars of Lord Vishnu are described. The universal history is described. It's the Amala Purana, the spotless Purana. 335 chapters, 18,000 verses, the Supreme Purusha, Supreme Purana. It's relished by Paramahamsa devotees, therefore it's called the Paramahamsa Samhita. And the final conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam is that we don't need to study anything else. Nothing else needs to be studied. It's the crown jewel, the essence of Vedic knowledge. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to read one verse every day. If we read a verse every day, it would take us 50 years, 50 years. And in spite of that, in every temple of ISKCON across the world, we read one verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very important to read Bhagavatam. Therefore, Bhagavatam is compared to a deepa or a lamp. It illuminates, it lights up. In Kali Yuga, everything is dark and dry. Srimad Bhagavatam, it appears as this colossal light in the middle of everything and lights up Bhagavatam, lights up this Kali Yuga. Without the help of Srimad Bhagavatam, the other scriptures cannot adequately depict reality. Although Bhagavatam talks about Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, there are 90 chapters in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Of the 335 chapters, 28%, that talks exclusively about Krishna. And what a wonderful description. As a matter of fact, Srila Prabhupada was so anxious that he wouldn't get to the 10th canto that he wrote the Krishna book. Like in the Mohini pastime, she steals the nectar from the demons, gives it to the devotees, so she deceives the demons. Bhagavatam also deceives the impersonalists, defeats the impersonalists. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's private secretary, Swarup Damodar Goswami, he advised all visitors who came to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, that you should read Bhagavatam and study Bhagavatam from the person Bhagavatam. That's what Prabhupada is saying in the purport. The person Bhagavatam is a self-realized, bona fide spiritual master. You only hear from such a person if you want the desired result. Mahachintya Bhagavata Sarva Shastra Gai. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, Devananda Pandit, all Shastras say that Srimad Bhagavatam is inconceivable. It cannot be understood just by ourselves. We need the assistance of other devotees, and particularly the spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu even tells Sanatana Goswami that the Srimad Bhagavatam is identical with Krishna. In every verse, in every syllable, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, Sanatana Goswami, there is unlimited meaning. Hare Krishna. And that unlimited meaning has been explained by the Acharyas. Our Acharyas, they relished Srimad Bhagavatam. You will find in our Sampradaya that the Srimad Bhagavatam is so front and center. So front and center. The Acharyas took a lot of time to explain. In the Bhakti Ratnaka, you will read that Sanatana Goswami has a dream. Somebody had given him a book. The next day, the person that he dreamt about had actually came and blissfully handed him a copy of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Sanatana Goswami then writes a very beautiful book. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it. It's called Shri Krishna Stava, Leela Stava. It's translated by our beloved Gopi Paranadan Prabhu. And in there, Sanatana Goswami is offering obeisances to the different forms of Krishna. And he gets to the Srimad Bhagavatam in text number, I think it's 410 or 11, 412 maybe, and he glorifies the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is what Sanatana Goswami says. He says things like this. I mean, it's the most amazing appreciation of showing the relationship Sanatana Goswami had with the Bhagavatam. Oh, nectar, churned from the ocean of all Vedic literatures. You are the life breath of the Vaishnava devotees. You are the sun that has risen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. Actually, you are Lord Krishna, who has returned to be amongst us. Sanatana Goswami is writing this 500 years ago. Your syllables shower the pure love of God. O Srimad Bhagavatam, my only friend, companion, and teacher, I bow down to you. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly. O Srimad Bhagavatam, please never leave me. Hare Krishna. How beautiful is that? Sanatana Goswami, such a heartfelt rendition of his appreciation of Bhagavatam. My only friend, bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly. How perfect and how accurate that is. Of course, Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbhas, Sometimes persons might think that devotees are sentimental, we are holy fools, or, So, Jiva Goswami, in his Tattva Sandarbha, he makes a very scholarly and a very invincible case for the glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam, where he shows so expertly how this Purana reconciles all other scriptures, that it represents the philosophy of Vedanta perfectly. It's a coherent overview of all the scriptures. And he quotes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and says it's a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So, Jiva Goswami establishes Bhagavatam as the highest gift, unparalleled, unmatched. He builds up a multiple layer of argument for its supremacy. It's the best praman. In other words, it's the best evidence. It requires no other proof. It vanquishes all distress and misery, and allows Krishna to personally enter the heart and remove all misfortune. Hare Krishna. Just by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, all misfortune is removed. And Jiva Goswami concludes, he says that Srimad Bhagavatam's purpose is to convince the living entity to surrender to the Supreme Lord. Now, in a sense, Sukadeva Goswami has also saved each one of us from the snake bite of material existence. Here we have the great king Maharaj Parikshit. He's cursed to die within 7 days. He's a great emperor of the world. He was young, he was very powerful, and he could neutralize. He was a mystic. He could have easily neutralized the snake bite to prevent it from happening. But when Maharaj Parikshit enters that assembly where he hears the Srimad Bhagavatam with folded hands, he's saying, after proper deliberation, tell me, O holy sages, what is the duty of that person who is just about to die? Now, of course, this same predicament confronts each one of us, you and I. We also curse to die within 7 days. We just don't know which set of 7 days. Could start now, could start in 2025, but 7 days it is. One Sunday to the next Sunday, our turn will be called. Sukadeva Goswami, when he walks into that assembly, is described like he was like the moon surrounded by the stars. He had no material credentials. He wasn't even initiated, Brahman initiated. But all the sages, they deferred to his authority. It was an august assembly. There was great saintly persons. Persons from other universes were there. Vashishta, Vishvamrita, Parashuram, Narada Muni. Even Vyasudev, who's his father, was there. So Narada Muni represented the demigods. Vasudev represented all the saintly Brahmins. He was speaking in the presence of his spiritual master and his grand spiritual master. But Jiva Goswami says, nevertheless, his gurus felt that they have never heard what he had said before. So Sukadeva Goswami, he's speaking these 18,000 verses, 168 hours, 7 days, no eating, no sleeping, no drinking, just perfect questions, perfect answers, and the king achieved perfect liberation. Now, by Srila Prabhupada's grace, we are able to prepare for such an inevitable moment. Armed with the knowledge of Bhagavatam, from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam's purport, we also, when that final moment arrives, taking the lesson that's given here in Bhagavatam, and particularly the Bhaktivedanta purports. Bhaktivedanta purports key. ISKCON is under the philosophical protection of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no knowledge in this universe that can contra or even place a challenge to Srimad Bhagavatam. We find in the Vedas there are multiple versions of a particular pastime. Like you read the Mahabharata, it says that Maharaj Parikshit was born stillborn. He was born dead. But Krishna, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, says he never allowed Maharaj Parikshit to die. He protected him. So which version do we accept? We default to Srimad Bhagavatam. And we must be guided by the Bhagavata, the person Bhagavat. There's the Grantha Bhagavat, which is the book, and there's a Bhakta Bhagavat, which is the person. So in ISKCON, we have the perfect combination. You have the book Bhagavatam, the person Bhagavat. What could possibly go wrong? The philosophical protection we are talking about is tremendous. You would know that Srila Prabhupada in the late 60s, he had a tourist visa when he was in America. So he wanted to apply for a more permanent stay, and the devotee drove him to the to the embassy, the American embassy, to get a visa. So the devotee felt that somehow or the other, if we presented it as a cultural visa, Srila Prabhupada would be able to get this visa. So like you know, for many of us who have been to embassies to apply for visas, this lady was politely very dismissive of what Prabhupada wanted. And so the devotee who was with him says, well, you know, my spiritual master, he wrote many books. Of course, at this time, in the late 60s, it was the Bhagavatam, first canto that was done. He plays instruments, he sings and he dances. So the lady looks up nonchalantly and says, has he won any prizes? Like the Pulitzer Prize for literature, or the Nobel Peace Prize? Or was any of his songs in the top 10? And then the lady says, looks at the devotee again and says, are any books on the bestsellers list of this country? So the devotee says, well, I don't think so, but he's sold many thousands of books. So this lady then turns around and says to this devotee, can you provide a certificate of proof of how many books have been sold? Hare Krishna. Well, I would like to say this lady, and we would like to, as the followers of Srila Prabhupada, tell this lady 55 years later that since 1975 to this very second, 560 million pieces of literature have been distributed. Someone on the planet receives Srila Prabhupada's books every 3 seconds. The Jameson Bible, as you know, has been in existence for 300 years, and somebody receives the Jameson Bible every 1 second. But they are 300 years, we are 55 years, coming soon. Srila Prabhupada would say, when one book is distributed, I feel I've conquered an empire. What a personality Srila Prabhupada was. A Mahabhagavat devotee of the Lord. Galitam Phalam, the ripened fruit of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he gave that to us. His last breath, he is translating Srimad Bhagavatam. He started Back to Godhead magazine, which is articles from the Bhagavatam in 1944. It's still being published today. Started the BBT in 1972. Print as many books in as many languages. From the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada gave 2,200 lectures. Recorded lectures, 1,300 recorded conversations. He wrote over 6,000 letters in correspondence. Now, Srila Prabhupada clearly is the perfect Bhagavata for the next 10,000 years. Sometimes when you're too close to a mountain, the beauty and the majestic appearance of the mountain cannot be appreciated. As you go further away from the mountain, you're able to appreciate the beauty of the mountain in totality. As time passes, Srila Prabhupada's position in this world by a secular society and persons or thought leaders of this world will appreciate the contribution he's made to mankind. Nobody in the history of time has made the contribution like Srila Prabhupada has done. So, yes, Srila Prabhupada ki. So in the ILS, we were asked to say something that ISKCON's future is very bright. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, Pitiviti Achayate Nagaradi Gram, Savatra Pachayra Hoibamura. Now, that in every town and village, and in more towns and villages, as days go by, Krishna's name will be heard. ISKCON's philosophical existence is hinged on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, it's invincible. Somebody might translate or give a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, one of the smaller books, but Srimad Bhagavatam is something very special. When Srila Sukadeva Goswami spoke, it is described that it is very tasteful because it came from the lips of Sukadeva Goswami. But Srila Prabhupada's incredible fidelity, if you're a scholar and you have an interest in scholarly presentations, you look at the Skanda Purana or Padma Purana and you look at Bhagavatam and you can see it's very scholarly presented. And we will see as time goes on that ISKCON becomes more glorious with every passing day. We see more of extraordinary feats like the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, which is a fulfillment of a prophecy. Yesterday in our BBT meetings, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj kindly introduced one devotee, Shyamananda Prabhu, who Maharaj said had set up a branch in Pakistan. Hare Krishna. And this devotee was going through his presentation, which was quite a rushed presentation. And he said that he had translated Srimad Bhagavatam to the 3rd canto in Urdu. And at least 500 or 600 people attend his Sunday program every Friday in Pakistan. So the Sankirtan assets of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is growing. In Mayapur Dham, I'm told, I was corrected by His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj once in a meeting. He said, we did a valuation of all the assets in Mayapur. It's more than $700 million. So we have structures like the ILS, the SGGS, OGDEV, is helping the GBC with institutional safeguards. It's long-term planning. The message we want to share is very important, has to be preserved, the fidelity has to be preserved, and there's a fundamental reliance on Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's books. The ill effects of Kali Yuga most certainly will be minimized because there are devotees of Krishna all over the earth. They engage in Harinam Sankirtan and they study and teach Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the inspiration to the soldiers in the Sankirtan movement. Srimad Bhagavatam, it introduces the flavors of the spiritual world. When we get the taste of that flavor, then the flavor of this material world, which is like plastic, becomes, there's no taste in it. So Sukadeva Goswami's narration is described while he was narrating Srimad Bhagavatam, within those 7 days, the demigods actually descended. Demigods descended, they offered Sukadeva Goswami, dear Sukadeva Goswami, accept this nectar from the heavenly planets. You know the demigods live for one kalpa, 1 day of Lord Brahma. If you drink this nectar and you give this to Maharaj Parikshit, he won't have to die. The 7-day fear is no more there. And in exchange for this nectar, you give us the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. What do you think, Sukadeva Goswami? Sukadeva Goswami just simply laughed it off and dismissed their offer. He said, nothing in this world is comparable to anything like the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, for the devotee of Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam does not allow its followers to ask for anything from Krishna except eternal love for him. And therefore Jiva Goswami concludes in that Tattva Sandarbha, he makes a statement, indeed Srimad Bhagavatam is the exact image of Krishna himself. We need say nothing more. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the exact image of Krishna himself, and we need say nothing more. Now I want to just narrate something, and then we'll ask for some reflections. I was in some part of Africa where we come from, and there was a program going on, and there were lots of devotees getting ready to go for a Rath Yatra. So I was standing right at the back with my back to the wall, and there was this very tall African girl who was walking through the audience. She was distinctly tall, so you could see her coming through. She had come down and she had bowed down. So I thought, I was looking around to see if there was a Maharaj or who was she bowing down to. Then I realized that she was actually bowing down to where I was standing. So I thought there's something definitely wrong with this child. Why is she bowing down to me? Then she picked her head up and she asked me, are you from the BBT? I said, yes. And she spoke very good English. Very good English. I said, yes. And then tears started to flow down her eyes. She said, well, she got up now and she was quite a towering personality. She pointed out to the area where there was like a squatter camp, a very informal kind of living. She says, I live down there, but we were caught up in the Rwandan genocide. I was a baby or something like that, she was saying, if I remember the details correctly. And we all fled and we were living here in this different country. And we took the most educated amongst ourselves, which was my uncle. We sent him to the Europe of Africa, which was South Africa, to go start a life. Because, if you know the Rwandan genocide, you'd know that persons were traumatized, millions were killed, in very violent ways. Only because of their ethnicity. Bhagavatam is providing transcendental knowledge. So she says, my uncle went to Cape Town, to South Africa. He was in a city called Cape Town, and somebody gave him something. He called us up and said, listen, I've read this book that somebody gave me on a street. I've understood the book. I've reconciled with my maker. I feel peaceful. I'm no more traumatized. And I've sent this book. I think this is what we are looking for. Not the economic balancing, but the internal balancing, to understand our purpose in this creation. I'm fully convinced. Please go and get it. So she said she went to the post office, received the book, got it, read it. She heard that the BBT person was here. She came to thank the BBT person for producing the science of self-realization. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. So we have a few minutes. We will ask for some reflections and comments. Hare Krishna. No, we don't actually. A lot of people. The question was, in Africa, do you have the Srimad Bhagavatam translated in any African language? The answer is no. In Africa, there are 2,100 languages. We'll get there.
Govardhan, Hare Krishna. Govardhan Prabhu, what an inspiring class. And your stature, sitting there and delivering. The introduction today just gave your name, and I think it was appropriate to hear your name and then hear your delivery and feel it. But one of the best classes I've heard ever. Thank you very, very much. Hare Krishna. I just want to say a little more for the introduction, and that is that I have the privilege of sometimes sitting next to Govardhan Prabhu at BBT meetings and know that his story started from getting one of Srila Prabhupada's books when I first met him and understood his qualifications, which are profound. And then I asked him, what brought you to Krishna consciousness? He told me how he had been saved by one of Srila Prabhupada's books and is eternally grateful, and therefore has decided to give his life to not just spreading Krishna consciousness, but very specifically to helping to make sure that every part of the world, in every part of the world, and especially in Africa, everyone gets one of Srila Prabhupada's books. So my point is that we come to the ILS ISKCON Leadership Conference to become inspired, and especially to see who's leading in ISKCON, and seeing you here leading and hearing how you speak is extremely inspirational. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Vaisheshika Prabhu is obviously very affectionate towards me. So.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for inspiring the devotees. The previous verse, text 2, it says that the Purana propounds the highest truth. But we see also that other books also propound highest truth. And also it uproots the threefold miseries. We also find it, other books also uproots the miseries. But the uniqueness of Bhagavatam is this verse, Rasam Alayam. Means it is the Rasam Alayam. Means I would like to explain what is this in the simple words. This Rasam Alayam, this juice.
Well, the juice is
It's
that
a
it's
uniqueness.
coming from the lips of Sukadeva Goswami. That's why it's juicy. But the Bhaktivedanta purports now is coming from the lips of Srila Prabhupada. So the taste is exponentially doubled. And Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, it's ever increasing. When you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, if you do scholarly work at university, like I do sometimes, and you read all of these mundane philosophers, and then you read Bhagavatam, what Srila Prabhupada is saying, I mean, it really is, a pond to an ocean. It really is, because that sweetness that Srila Prabhupada's unique ability to present Bhagavatam in the way he has is just unparalleled. So that sweetness is there in the tasting. The thing is, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are also many encryptic, confusing aspects. If you look at the 12th canto, at verse number 13, after you've gone to the whole Bhagavatam, 90 chapters of Krishna's pastimes, you've gone to the 11th canto, which is about Gyan. In the 12th canto, in this verse, I think it's verse 13, where it gives the impression that Brahman is superior to Krishna. Yeah. So clearly Bhagavatam is meant. There are things in Bhagavatam that has been encoded. You got to have the taste. You got to have the shelter of a devotee to understand it in totality. Yeah. Any other comments? Shall we stop here? Yeah. Mataji? So Mataji, we made an agreement, no questions, only comments, okay? Because I can't answer questions. Comments, yeah. Because you asked me a difficult question, I'm going to have to refer it to Vaisheshika Prabhu. Okay, go for it. No, go for it. I'm joking with you. Yes, it's just a question. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Guru Maharaj reciting an Maharaja Parikshit. Maybe nobody falls over it, but I want to know it. Suppose it happened to me. Before.
So they can't hear you. Can you put the mic on?
Okay. Knowing Maharaja Parikshit, knowing that he was going to die within 7 days, and he started fasting and eating and drinking nothing. I wonder, suppose I come to know that within several days I will die. Now I want to keep fasting. But isn't it true, or maybe if there are doctors here, they can falsify it or confirm it, that medical, especially modern medical science, have proven that somebody cannot live longer than 5 days without water. You can survive 40 days without food, but without water, only 5 days. My question, suppose I start doing, a question, I don't know why I have to die within 5 minutes or 5 days, and I want to start fasting. So suppose I die within 5 days, like Maharaja Parikshit, how could he survive when the modern medical science have proven that within 5 days somebody will die because lack of water or liquid?
Well, so I got the question, yeah?
Yes, and if I die, am I not committing, how do you call it, the Sanskrit name I forgot, anyway, commit suicide?
It's better to chant Hare Krishna if you're an ordinary person like you and I. 5 days notice is also a long time. If somebody gives you 5 days notice, that's pretty good, Normally it's old age lingers for a long time. It's a mascot to death. But even in old age, some persons think that, well, they still have long time to live. But death sometimes, most times, is instantaneous. It's unannounced. Maharaj Parikshit's not an ordinary personality, neither is Sukadeva Goswami. We're speaking here that they listening for 7 days, 168 hours. That's, the average statistical life of a human being is how long, do you know? It's 21,900 days. So if you take 21,900 days and you figure out 5 days and 7 days, small time, you don't really have anything substantial to wager against Yamaraj. Best just surrender and do it as quickly as possible. But specifically to your question, it's that, if you have been notified of some ailment and you're going to leave this world, it's best to chant Hare Krishna in the association of devotees. Because if you and I try and fast, we might fast for like maybe 7 hours, we could be gone. You know? Half a day fast sometimes can be a challenge, right? Janmashtami is like a real challenge. I mean, it's midnight. Now 7 days, Hare Krishna, 7 Janmashtamis continuously, it could be something. So best chant Hare Krishna if you put into that prediction. That's why, you see, Lord Nityananda Prabhu is very merciful. I read something once where Srila Prabhupada one devotee was some difficulty in the temple and the temple authorities wanted him to leave. And Srila Prabhupada heard and somebody asked Srila Prabhupada what to do. And Srila Prabhupada says, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, he is very, 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 very merciful. 5 times he said. So devotees of Lord Chaitanya, we are fortunate. Because Lord Nityananda is very merciful, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very merciful. Even if you forget Krishna, there's the assurance given that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will force himself into your mind. Of course, if there is some medical thing, you should get some medical advice. We are talking here, it's a very exalted subject matter beyond medical science, etc. It is possible that if you're fasting... Huh?
Eat and drink, and not drinking causes failure of all the organs.
But here's the thing here, we've been through 8,400,000 species of life. So dying one time is not something so unique or special. We've done it before, we just don't remember it. But Srila Prabhupada's mercy, Srila Prabhupada is saying stop it, bring it to an end. Okay, we'll stop here, okay? It's 9 o'clock, yeah. Vaisheshika Prabhu wants to say something.
It's in the Bhagavatam how it was that Parikshit Maharaj defied the science of 5 days, and he mentions it himself in the 10th canto, 1st chapter, 13th verse, when he says, Nai shati dushaha shunvam tyaktodam apibhadate pibantan twan mukamboja chutam harikatam ritam. Because of my vow on the verge of death, I have given up even drinking water, yet because I am drinking the nectar of topics about Krishna, which is flowing from the lotus mouth of your lordship, my hunger and thirst, which are extremely difficult to bear, cannot hinder me.
There we
and
go.
Prabhupada goes on to say in the purport that generally one cannot do these kinds of things unless you're drinking chutam harikatam ritam.
Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.